Being 16 years old is tough. Being a 16-year-old Latina from ParkCity is even tougher. When I was 16, a series of unfortunate events led me to a suicide watch hospital. Being 16-year-old Latina from ParkCity in a suicide watch hospital is definitely tougher. First day of hospitalization, first therapy session of the day was all about friends. They said, "Tell me about your friends." I didn't really know what to say. My only response was, "Well, we're the Mexicans." "No," they said. "Tell us, what kind of friends do you have? Where do you fit in?" And I said, "No, seriously, we're just the Mexicans. It's us, and then there's everybody else." Well, that therapy session got me nowhere. First day of hospitalization, second therapy session of the day was all about family. I spent an hour talking about my grandmother. So, my therapist suggested that we bring her in for a family therapy session. I agreed, but after I mentioned that she didn't speak a word of English, he murmured something about not having a translator and made the executive decision that having my grandmother in for a therapy session wasn't that important. First day of hospitalization, last therapy session of the day was all about name calling. My therapist walked up to me and handed me a marker. He said, "Go up to the board and write down a word that you hate. A word that when you hear it, it makes you cringe. The worst name you could be called." I looked up and saw that my fellow patients had written down words like stupid, ugly, fat, and so on and so forth. But there was only one word I could think of that I really, really hated. A word that I could not handle being called. So I took that marker, and on that board, I wrote down the word illegal. Silence fell upon that room. And for that entire therapy session, not a single person even mentioned or acknowledged that I had written down the word illegal on the board. And that was the day that I realized that illegal was only an insult to those it applied to. In other words, illegal is only an insult to me and the rest of my minority friends. I remember being a 7th grader. I was registering for 8th grade. I was so excited. I was finally going to be a big 8th grade junior high schooler. And I walked up to my counselor and I said, "I want to be a leader." So I wanted to register for student council or leadership. She kind of fidgeted and suggested that instead I register for Latinos in Action. So, first day of 8th grade, I found myself walking into a Latinos in Action classroom. Not necessarily because it was my first pick, but because it was a better fit for me. Luckily, it turned out to be. My teacher's first comment was, "Don't live a stereotype. Don't become the stereotype that is placed in front of you," and it resonated with me. So after that year, it became my main priority to prove stereotypes wrong. So I worked as hard as I possibly could my 8th grade year, and by my 9th grade year, I was president at the Treasure Mountain Junior High School's Latinos in Action class. I was so excited because my first assignment I gave to the students was for everybody to make a video about our Hispanic heritage and about racism that they had faced firsthand. So after weeks of effort into those videos, they were finally aired on the morning announcements. As they played, I had goosebumps. I was so excited and proud, and I thought finally someone addressed the real issue. But the second those videos stopped playing and I stepped foot out into the hallway, I was stopped by a girl who laughed and informed me that my videos were a waste of time because racism is dead. That's hilarious, I thought. I had spent 2 years of my life fighting to stop something that was already dead. In the book Up Against Whiteness by Stacey J. Lee, she mentions that whiteness is associated with economic self-sufficiency, independence, and self-discipline, while blackness is associated with welfare dependency and failure. So where does that leave me? I guess I'm not necessarily a failure, but most definitely below the standard of success. That's why I constantly find myself trying to prove that I can be successful, not just to myself, but anybody else who is watching. Second day of hospitalization, third therapy session of the day. My therapist posed a question. So he said, imagine that you're walking next to a river, and you see someone had fallen into the river. Now, you could save their life, or you could let them drown. But if you save their life, you're putting your own life in danger, and consequentially, you could also be in danger. Well, I hear the girl next to me say, well, it depends. Who are we talking about? My therapist took a second, and he decided that in this specific scenario, we were talking about a 19-year-old black male. Almost immediately, I heard the boy across from me start screaming out statistics about how likely it is that our 19-year-old black male will be to end up in prison in the next 5 years. I believe he used the term burden on society. My only response was Martin Luther King Jr. and Barack Obama. The boy asked, how do you know that he will be successful? Exactly. Statistics don't define a person because we all have potential to be successful despite the statistics and stereotypes that are placed in front of us. I remember being in my 8th grade Latinos in Action classroom, hearing my teacher read me statistics about how likely I am to end up in prison, drop out of high school, or become pregnant by the age of 16. I'm 17 years old and have no kids. I'm still in high school, so I guess every single day I'm a perfect example of disproving these statistics and stereotypes. Stereotypes only exist unless we create them. Your actions define your character. Never settle for less because of stereotypical expectations that have been placed in front of you. Thank you.